Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into 19th century America
Exciting.
to explore, the story of how American capitalism took shape.
Yeah.
Our guide for this deep dive
Hey.
is Capitalism Takes Command.
Mm-hmm.
It's a collection of essays
Right.
edited by Michael Zakim and Gary Kornblythe.
Familiar.
Get ready to uncover some really interesting stuff,
Like what?
like the connections between homesteaders seeking land
Oh, yeah.
and clerks keeping books in the cities.
Interesting. Yeah.
Even the drama of the market,
Okay. Intrigued.
playing out on the streets and everything.
Yeah, that's a fascinating story
Oh, absolutely.
because it challenges us to see familiar things
Right.
in the new light.
Mm.
For example, westward expansion. We think of it as
Like freedom.
yeah, freedom and opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
but it was also tied to the rise of financial capitalism
Oh, for sure.
and the commodification of labor.
Exactly. And speaking of commodification,
Yeah.
one of the key ideas is how America shifted from a society with markets to a true market society.
Right.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so think of it this way.
Okay.
Before the 19th century, markets existed,
Right.
but they didn't dominate everything.
Like life in general.
Yeah, people produced for their own use. They bartered with neighbors,
Yeah.
They relied on those traditional social relationships.
Right.
But then during the 19th century,
Things changed.
yeah,
Big time.
almost everything became a commodity,
Okay.
something bought and sold.
In the market.
Yes, in the marketplace.
So land, labor, time
Exactly.
all became subject to...
Supply and demand.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like society itself was being reshaped.
Mm-hmm.
The book actually quotes...
Oh, does it?
Yeah, Carl Polanyi,
Okay.
he described this shift as instead of the economy being embedded in social relations, it's like social relations became embedded.
An economic system.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
And this transformation had huge implications.
It did for ordinary Americans.
In what way?
It created new opportunities
Okay.
for wealth
Mm-hmm.
and for advancement, sure.
But also...
Risks and uncertainties.
Right, so this market revolution, it wasn't just some theory,
No.
it was playing out.
Yeah, in the lives of real people.
Absolutely, and one of the areas we see this
Okay.
is agriculture.
Right.
How is the expansion of agriculture connected to the rise of American capitalism?
Okay, well, agriculture played a central role in this.
I can see that.
As the country expanded westward,
Okay.
land itself became a commodity.
To be bought and sold?
Right.
Wow.
And farmers,
Yeah.
they were producing for distant markets.
Not just for themselves anymore?
No, not anymore.
So this created...
Opportunities for profit.
Okay.
But it also made them dependent
On what?
market forces, which could be volatile.
Right. It's like those images of pioneers heading west. They weren't just about land and freedom. They were entering this capitalist system.
Precisely.
And the Homestead Act of 1862, offering free land,
Right.
while intended to grant independence, often pushed settlers into risky ventures.
Relied on credit and those distant markets.
Didn't this act also displace many Native Americans?
It did.
How did that tension play out?
Well, it's fascinating how policies can have unintended consequences.
Absolutely.
The book highlights the growing role of mortgages
Okay.
in the 19th century,
Interesting.
how they tied farmers to the financial system.
In precarious ways.
Yeah, definitely.
It seems paradoxical.
In what way?
You have this ideal
Okay.
of the independent farmer, but also this growing dependence.
On banks and credit, yeah.
It's like a contradiction.
It was a tension that played out
Throughout the century.
throughout the 19th century
The book contrasts Thoreau,
at Walden Pond,
right, seeking transcendental independence, with someone like George Boutwell,
a farmer,
who pursued economic independence.
through land ownership.
So their stories illustrate
Right, yeah.
the diverse ways Americans grappled with.
The changing nature of work and economic success.
The book also mentions Nathan Brooks,
Oh, yeah, the lawyer.
who managed estates in Concord and found that even the prosperous
Yeah,
often died deep in debt.
it's true.
That's really interesting.
Brooks's observations highlight a crucial point.
Which is?
It wasn't just about accumulating wealth.
Okay.
It was about navigating financial obligations. And as the economy grew,
Yeah.
these obligations became intertwined with global markets,
Wow.
forces beyond an individual's control.
Right.
This vulnerability, this dependence,
Yeah.
was felt by Western farmers.
Absolutely. And this brings us to another aspect of 19th century American capitalism.
Let's hear it.
The role of slavery.
Okay.
How did this system factor into the broader economic landscape?
Slavery is often viewed as separate from capitalism,
Right.
but it was deeply intertwined.
Really?
Oh, yeah. The South's reliance on slave labor,
Mm-hmm.
particularly in cotton production,
Okay.
fueled the global economy,
Yeah.
provided immense profits.
It's essential to acknowledge that America's economic rise was built
In part,
on the exploitation of enslaved people.
it's a painful truth.
Yeah, the book also discusses how Southern planters
Mm-hmm.
tried to maintain control
Even after the Civil War.
through systems like sharecropping.
Right, which wasn't viewed uniformly.
Oh, how so?
Some saw it as a continuation of slavery.
Okay.
Others believed it was a form of wage labor.
So we're seeing how these historical forces weren't just abstract trends.
No.
They were shaping lives.
Yes, in profound ways.
These narratives really bring that home.
They do.
They make it much more tangible.
And relevant.
And it's important to remember,
What's that?
these forces weren't confined to one region.
No. For example, slavery
Mm-hmm.
wasn't just a Southern problem. It was becoming enmeshed in global financial markets.
The book uses the panic of 1837
Oh, interesting.
to illustrate how the financialization of slavery contributed to a broader economic crisis,
That's a perfect example.
of how seemingly disparate elements were
Yeah.
interconnected.
In ways we might not expect.
Can you explain the financialization of slavery?
Sure. So, in the years leading up to the panic,
Mm-hmm.
slaveholders were using enslaved people
As what?
as collateral for loans.
Oh, wow.
This created a web of debt and risk.
Connecting.
Southern planters
Okay.
to banks in the North,
And-
investors in Europe,
It's a disturbing example.
of how the pursuit of profit
Yeah.
could lead to the commodification of human beings.
On a massive scale.
Yes, very disturbing.
And speaking of far-reaching consequences,
Okay.
the rise of corporations.
In the 19th century,
Right.
a crucial role.
In what way?
They allowed businesses to amass capital
Okay.
and operate on a larger scale.
Than ever before.
Yes, they connected physical capital.
Like factories.
Yes,
Yeah.
factories and machinery
Mm-hmm.
with human capital.
The workers.
Yes, and financial capital.
The investors.
Right.
This enabled them to drive innovation,
And expand markets.
transforming the economy.
It did.
But wasn't there pushback against corporations?
Oh, yeah.
What were people concerned about?
Many Americans viewed them with suspicion.
Because
They feared they would undermine Republican values,
Okay.
create monopolies,
Mm-hmm.
concentrate wealth.
Interesting.
This tension
Yeah.
between embracing their potential
Right.
and fearing their potential for abuse.
Continues to this day.
It does.
It sounds familiar.
Very familiar.
How did ordinary Americans reconcile these
Wow.
anxieties with the desire to participate?
Well, despite their concerns,
Okay.
many were eager to invest.
To share in the profits.
Yes, institutions like mutual savings banks
Okay.
made corporate ownership accessible.
Even for people of modest means.
Exactly.
So even as people criticized capitalism, they were participating.
Trying to make it work for them.
Right. And this leads us to
Another key figure,
the clerk.
the clerk.
Now, I wouldn't think of clerks as
Right.
being at the forefront of economic change.
Mm-hmm.
Why does the book focus on them?
Clerks might seem ordinary,
Right?
but they're growing numbers.
In cities,
Yeah, like New York.
reflected a profound shift.
In the American economy,
How so?
businesses grew larger
Okay.
and more complex.
So they needed
A new class of workers.
to manage information.
Yes, keep track of financing.
Oversee personnel.
Exactly.
So they were the ones,
Keeping the system running.
and this required
News skills.
big
Bookkeeping.
clerks.
The book emphasizes double-entry bookkeeping.
Right.
Revolutionized accounting
So businesses could track finances.
with more accuracy.
It's fascinating how bookkeeping could have such an impact
It was essential
and part of a shift
towards a knowledge economy.
where information was a commodity.
Yes, instead of just producing goods,
Yeah.
people were producing knowledge.
To generate profit.
Right.
So instead of apprenticeships, you had institutions.
Like Comer's Commercial College,
in Boston.
teaching business
It's
skills.
like a whole new world of work.
It was.
But this also created challenges
Yeah, for young men
seeking their fortune.
in a changing economy.
So even as American capitalism created opportunities, it also generated inequality.
And exploitation,
The story of the clerk reflects.
those larger tensions.
It does.
And it's a reminder
Of what?
that the history of American capitalism is not a simple tale.
Of progress.
It's complex and contradictory.
Shaped by aspirations.
And systemic forces.
Our quest for independence.
Met by increasing
And forces beyond our control.
Exactly. The Civil War, it was a watershed moment,
Yep.
not just politically
Right.
and socially, but economically as well.
So it wasn't just about ending slavery.
No, it reshaped the entire economic landscape.
In what way?
The war created both opportunities and challenges.
Okay.
For businesses, especially in the North, industries like railroads and resource extraction experienced a surge in demand.
Because of the war.
Yeah, as the Union government sought to mobilize resources and support the war effort.
It also accelerated a trend.
Yes, towards a nationalized economy.
What do you mean by a nationalized economy?
Well, prior to the war,
Okay.
the American economy was more fragmented.
Okay.
Different regions specialized. And state governments often regulated commerce.
So the war required
a more centralized approach.
With the federal government taking a larger role.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Managing the economy, promoting growth.
Facilitating trade across state lines.
All of that.
So the war laid the groundwork.
In a sense, yeah.
For large-scale capitalism.
That's a great insight.
The book highlights some examples. Oh, yeah.
Like in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Wartime legislation. Loosened restrictions on railroads.
Allowing them to
consolidate and expand.
Mirroring trends in other industries. Coal and oil.
It's ironic that a war to preserve the Union contributed to the rise of corporations.
One of the many paradoxes.
The Civil War intended to end slavery, unleashed economic forces that reshaped the nation.
In unforeseen ways.
And these forces played out differently.
Across various regions. Even the map of the U.S. was altered?
You're referring to West Virginia?
Yeah. What role did economic interest play?
Good point.
What did happen?
West Virginia's emergence was driven by economic factors.
Interesting.
It offered a business-friendly environment,
attracting
corporate investment, particularly in coal and railroads.
So even the formation of states...
It's all connected.
To capitalism. This whole discussion makes me realize that history is more complex than we think.
One of the key takeaways from the book is that we can't understand American capitalism without the cultural context.
Speaking of cultural context, the book introduces melodrama.
Melodrama.
Interesting. As a way of understanding how Americans made sense of economic change?
That seems like an unusual connection.
It does, right.
How does melodrama relate to economics?
It might seem like a stretch, but melodrama was a powerful tool for communicating anxieties in the 19th century.
Oh, so?
Melodrama is all about moral battles.
Good versus evil.
Right.
Virtue and vice.
It simplifies complex issues.
And presents them in a way that's...
engaging.
Yes, emotionally engaging and easy to understand.
So it's like a theatrical morality play.
Exactly.
Using exaggerated characters and plots.
To convey a message.
The book highlights William Leggett,
the journalist
and labor leader, who used melodrama
to critique what?
The power of corporations and banks.
Back in the 1830s.
So he was using this style
to make a point.
About economic injustice.
Precisely.
Leggett saw economic hardship as a betrayal
of Republican ideals.
Interesting.
He argued that a money power had emerged. Detached from the real economy.
So he used melodrama to portray this elite as villains.
Preying on the working class.
So instead of dry economic arguments, he used emotional language.
To rally people.
To his cause.
Exactly. And it was effective.
And it resonated.
With the working men's movement.
Which demanded.
Things like separating bank and state. Limits on corporate power.
Economic equality.
All of that.
It's amazing how he connected those realms.
Economics, politics, theater.
He understood that to mobilize people, you need to engage their hearts.
In their minds.
He had to translate economic theory
into a narrative
that people could connect with.
And melodrama provided that framework.
What stories are we telling ourselves today?
About our economic system.
Are we still caught up in melodramatic narratives?
That's a good question.
The book explores the darker side
of this economic transformation.
Looking at those who struggled.
And ended up on the losing side.
Like Lizzie Eyes.
Whose death she attributed to a farm mortgage.
That's right.
Her story is a reminder.
Of what?
That the pursuit of profit often came at a human cost.
It wasn't just farmers who faced challenges.
The book draws parallels
between
farmers in debt in the West
and
sharecroppers trapped in poverty in the South.
So American capitalism isn't just about success.
No.
There's another side.
Marked by exploitation.
Debt and powerlessness.
Yes, very much so.
And these forces were becoming interconnected.
They were, weren't they?
The book emphasizes the rise of global markets, the expansion of slavery,
into new territories,
the interconnectedness of economies
across continents,
all shaping American capitalism.
It's all connected.
This interconnectedness had implications.
Of course.
Events far away,
Could have ripple effects.
like the Panic of 1837,
which was triggered by
instability in Europe,
right,
and the financialization of slavery.
Reliant on global capital.
Highlights this interconnectedness.
Exactly.
It's like we're seeing a global capitalist system
emerging.
That's complex and difficult to control.
And this complexity brings us back to information and knowledge.
Okay.
As businesses grew,
transactions
spanned continents.
The need for
accurate record keeping,
financial management,
the ability to analyze data.
This is where bookkeeping comes in.
Yes, and the knowledge economy.
It's fascinating how these innovations could have such an impact.
They were essential.
Creating a demand for
a new kind of worker.
The clerk.
These individuals,
often young men seeking their fortune,
tasked with managing information,
ensuring smooth operation.
So the clerk becomes a symbol
of this shift
towards a knowledge-based economy.
Precisely.
And the book explored
opportunities and anxieties.
It offered a path to upward mobility for some, but it also fostered competition.
A sense of precarity.
These clerks, working long hours
for low wages,
faced pressure to prove their worth.
It echoes the challenges of today's economy.
Absolutely.
This tension between opportunity and exploitation.
An enduring feature of capitalism.
The book challenges us
to see both sides.
The innovations.
And the human costs.
It's a complex narrative that requires us to move beyond.
Heroes and villains.
This deep dive into 19th century American capitalism is so compelling.
Why is that?
It's not about glorifying the past.
Or demonizing capitalism.
It's about understanding the forces
that shaped our economic system.
And recognizing those forces are still at play.
Very much so.
It's about connecting the dots.
Between the past and present.
Recognizing that history is a living narrative.
Shaping our lives.
And as we delve deeper,
we uncover even more
surprising connections and insights.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
How all these threads connect.
It's incredible.
Westward expansion.
Bookkeeping. The Panic of 1837.
It all comes together.
To show how American capitalism emerged.
Exactly. It shows how interconnected things were.
And how those connections still matter today.
They do.
This exploration of capitalism takes command has been so eye-opening.
It has.
It's revealed how a society with markets became a market society.
Where everything's for sale.
Almost everything.
Even human lives.
In the case of slavery,
a tragic part of the story.
We've also seen those inherent tensions.
Within the system, yes.
The independent farmer.
Versus reliance on banks.
Corporate growth versus anxieties about monopolies.
It's a constant struggle.
And we've seen how individuals navigated it all.
Like those farmers dealing with distant markets.
Enslaved people resisting commodification.
Clerks trying to get ahead.
Each story adds another layer
to our understanding
of how this system impacted people.
And remember, it wasn't just America.
Right. Global markets were expanding.
Financialization of slavery.
Economies becoming interconnected.
All these forces shaping American capitalism.
It's like realizing our economic system is dynamic and ever-evolving.
It's not static.
Not isolated.
It's connected to everything.
This understanding makes me think
about what?
How things today might be shaping the future.
In ways we don't yet see.
Just like agriculture and bookkeeping back then.
What could have unforeseen consequences now?
It's fascinating to me how even melodrama
theatrical,
provided a framework
for critiquing economics.
It shows the power of narrative.
How culture can influence economics.
It challenges us
to think about the stories we tell.
About capitalism.
The narratives we embrace.
It's a reminder to be critical.
To question everything.
To look deeper.
As we face today's economic complexities.
The lessons of the past are vital.
They are.
Remember the potential for both progress and exploitation.
That tension is always there.
We need to shape a more just future.
Absolutely.
This deep dive into 19th century American capitalism.
It's been a journey.
Revealing the connections and tensions of our economic past.
And to our listeners.
Thank you for joining us.
Keep questioning.
Keep exploring.
Keep diving deep.
Until next time.